This is a quick overview of the iJuror app for iPad. iJuror allows you to use your iPad to help you with jury selection. In the initial screen, it lets us use a spinner field to put in a date. It lets us add the number of jurors, the number of alternates, and type in the caption for the case so that we can go back and we can review this case and the jurors at a later time. Once you save the trial, you'll see that there will be a number of empty juror seats, and you can go ahead and input the names of the jurors that can be configured for a particular case. Okay, so what we're going to do is add the jurors, first name, then last name, and then add their hometown. Somewhat similar to what a jury list provides you with. So once you receive the jury list, you can start typing in these names or have your assistant type in the names. There's a bunch of different ways that you can import the names, but typing is the basic one. And notice that once you select a field that requires an input, the iPad keyboard comes up. And as we type in names, it keeps track of them down at the bottom. To the left of the names, you'll see a button. It says Seat Juror. So these are people that are on the jury panel, but have not yet been selected to the main pool. So sometimes you'll get a list of 200 jurors, but then maybe only 40 will come up in the panel. So if you get that list in advance, you could go ahead and input the entire list so that you can save time when you get to court, and they'll already be in there. Voir dire Data is a company that can do this information or provide this information to you in advance. We can provide it in a format that you can use with the iJuror app, and in another segment we'll talk about the enhancements that we can provide with the program iJuror. The program does have a silly default. It puts in John Doe's so that you understand how to format it. This is a way, on this particular screen, this is a way of entering the names in a quicker format. Once you become a little bit more comfortable, you add in the first name, last name, /, and then you add in the town. So it'll let you cut and paste from another application. It will let you type faster than having to hit the input box. And you'll notice that once we're done adding names in this way, it'll go back to our original screen where we were inputting the jurors' names into the input boxes, and it'll format them and put them in the same style that the manual input displayed. This is just a little bit of a quicker enhancement where some people feel a little bit more comfortable typing without having to jump from box to box to box. So you type the names, first name, last name, /. If you notice now when we go back to the enter jurors screen, those people are automatically added to the jury pool, and these are jurors that have not yet been added to the jury panel. These are jurors that are on the overall jury list, and the button to the left will allow you to add them to your particular jury panel. And you'll see that once we see the juror, it'll take us back to the courtroom scene where there are seats for both the panel and the jurors that are in the box. So we'll just add a few more names here using the guided field boxes so that you can see how that function works. First name, last name, and town. Okay, you can take a look at all of the names uh, when you hit done. Or let's hit on Adam Adams. And let's say we have some information about Adam Adams. Well, clearly we know he's a male. Uh, we can see, or if we have an opportunity to see, we can see he's Caucasian, and we can add some demographic information about these particular jurors. And you do that by highlighting the little arrow to the right of the juror, and it'll bring you back and forth between the juror's name and the spinner fields that allow you to put in demographic information. Now, when you hit the button on the left, you notice as I'm hitting them, the names are disappearing. Well, it's actually putting them into the jury panel, and you'll see them on another screen. If you don't change their demographic information, it defaults to an African American female. That is the default configuration. So you notice with Mr. Adams, we had selected he's Caucasian, so it actually changed the color of the icon. In this case, we selected Bill Williams, and we know from the questionnaire and from some of the voir dire question that he is a plumber, he's a union worker, he's fiscally conservative, and in this case, we know some of the information about him, and he reads the local New Jersey newspapers. This information is critical because you're going to try a case to jurors that have certain opinions. And if you are writing this information down on scrap paper, you may forget about it when you're trying the case. Once we are getting the information about the juror, we can use these spinner fields to select his demographic information. He's a 35-year-old male, Caucasian, married. He says he has 3 kids, graduated high school. So far, we like him. He does have police in the family, no prior arrests, and he's never been a victim. Once we save it, that information is automatically associated with that juror. And if you notice, it changed the icon to green. So that means that we like him, and that was controlled by the feature whether we like him, we're indifferent, or dislike him. That will change the background setting of that particular jury. Also notice that when we changed to male and Caucasian, he went from a African American female to a Caucasian male, and it's just another visual representation that makes it a little bit easier when you're looking down at your iPad and looking up at the jury, so you can sort of keep track of both of them. Sometimes we have an occasion to forget juror names and different aspects about them, but that visual cue makes it a little bit easier to keep track of them when we're going back and forth between our iPad and the actual jury box. And with the next person, we're going to go in and we're going to change up some of the settings so they look a little bit different. But in this case, again, African American male, we like him. So again, he has a green background. Darling, we're going to make her an African American female. She's a receptionist and she works for a defense law firm. She's from North Brunswick, and well, let's change her age. And in this particular case, we'll make her, say, 51 years old, female. And okay, what we'll do is make her nationality or her ethnicity Asian. She's divorced with 2 kids. She's also a high school graduate. But in this particular case, we don't like her because she works for a defense firm, and that's not helpful to our case. She too has police in the family, no prior arrest, never been a victim. Save the information. Notice that it changed the icon background to red because we dislike her, changed her to female, and it also changed the ethnicity to look somewhat like somebody would from the Asia Pacific area of the world. Now, there are various different settings, and again, this is a brief overview, but if you hit the setting button, you can see that there are a number of things. One of the more important things is you can add in custom fields. If I know if somebody is a Democrat, Republican, or independent, to me that information is absolutely crucial, and that's something that I would like to keep track of. iJuror gives you 3 customizable fields or spinner wheels that you can add fields into. And if you follow any jury consultants, they'll have various different methods. Is the person a feeler, thinker? Are they sympathetic, or are they a critical thinker? Sometimes based on their answers, you can get that information. Whether a juror is an extrovert or an introvert may play a critical role in how they function with the other jury members. Sometimes a juror's personal characteristics may neutralize any of their biases because they're not really going to participate in jury selection, because they are an introvert, and an extrovert might be somebody that might dominate your jury. Now notice that we added in the fields, and down at the bottom the customizable fields pop up, so we can select if we know if the person's a Democrat, Republican, if they're a thinker or feeler, and if they're an introvert or extrovert. And that'll automatically be associated with each of the jurors. In this case, we feel she's a bit of an introvert because of her questions, and we're going back to the other jurors, and you notice that we can go back, and even though when we initially put them in we didn't have those spinner wheels, we can go back and add those people. Again, keep in mind at this point we're still focusing on the jury panel. They haven't hit the jury box yet. A lot of times I'm not filling this information out until I put them in the jury box. And in this particular case, we are going to pull up a number of jurors. They've been called into the box, and then we're going to work with these individual people. Edwina Edwards, we can see from the jury sheet where she works. And in this case, we know that she works for Bank of America. Her hometown is Edison. I don't always use the juror number. Depending on your jurisdiction, that might be something that's really important to keep track of, but that's an option. We know she's fiscally conservative. That might play a role in the amount of money that people give out. Fiscally conservative people tend to give out less money in personal injury cases. And we can jump back and forth between the various spinner fields. Back to the demographic field, we can add in she's a 35-year-old female, Asian, single, 2 kids. She has a bachelor degree, and in this case we're not too sure about her, so we're going to put her as a maybe. She too has police in the family, no prior arrest, and she was a victim of a crime. Depending on the type of case, that might be important. The spinner fields also let you keep track of prior jury service. Although it's not perfect, it does let you know which jurors have been on juries before. I do wish that it would allow us to put the result of their prior jury service. It doesn't do that. It just tells us whether or not they've been on a criminal jury, civil jury, or whether they've reached a verdict or a grand jury. I generally like to know if they've, in a civil case, if they've no-caused the plaintiff. It's somewhat like if a dog's ever bitten somebody and drawn blood. Well, maybe that changes the dog. I think that's the same about jurors. Once they've no-caused the plaintiff, it's very easy to go back and do it again and again. So I'm always leery of those particular plaintiffs. You might have a difference of opinion. And here what we're going to do is just go through the jurors and change around their demographic information. And I'm selecting a wide array of demographics so that you can see how the avatars or the jury icons change based on the selections that we pick. In this case, she does have a prior arrest. She's never been a victim, no prior jury service. She's a Republican, and she is a thinker. Again, I know I mentioned this, but keep in mind those bottom fields are fields that I added, and they're customizable fields that you can add based on the way that you pick juries. So you don't have to use my fields. You may have completely different criteria that you use, and you can select and edit the fields or the spinner fields in whatever way you want. Ms. Gerard is a CVS clerk. She's from Helmetta, and she doesn't pay attention to any news or social media. Generally, I think that somebody that pays attention to a particular news source is important. I think equally somebody that doesn't pay attention to the news is, at least that information is important as well, and it tells you something about how the person processes or fails to process information. And then we go back and forth between the jurors and the demographic information, changing their fields. What is interesting about the program is it'll change characteristics of the icon based on the information you put, except for the age. The person doesn't age, whether they're 18 or 99. There's no visual representation of how old they are. In this case, I felt she was independent. She was a critical thinker. And I'm going to go back and forth between the jurors. And I'm doing a number of them just so you sort of get the feel and the overview of how it is that you pop from one screen to the other. I know that things happen very quickly in a courtroom, and you're typing in information, or if you're fortunate enough to have an assistant sitting with you, you can have your assistant type in the information, the background information. What is interesting too about the newer versions of iJuror is it will let you pair two iPads together. So if you have an attorney sitting second seat, or you have a litigation paralegal with you, the both of you can sync your iPad applications and you can work on the same data set. So if you have somebody that's typing in this information, you can see the changes on your screen. And not only can you see them, you can make changes. So if you feel that they put in something that was incorrect and you want to change it, you can change it back. So both of you are essentially working on the same data set. Well, thank you for joining me for our very quick presentation on the iJuror app for the iPad. And it has been brought to you by my company, iJuror Data. We are a legal data technology company assisting lawyers with their trial technology needs, and in particular with jury selection. If you have any questions about trial technology and the host of products that we provide, in particular the background jury reports, please feel free to contact me at the information above. You can drop me an email, you can give me a call, and I'd absolutely love to discuss your needs and how iJuror Data can help you. Thank you.